Thanks so much to all my patrons. Join now to help support the channel and help pick the books that I review. Link in the description. All right, so it is the last day of the month, and that means it's time for my February recap video. I'm going to be giving a little bit of a life update, talk about my channel updates, go over my channel and reading stats, a recap of the books that I read, and then go over the books that I was sent over the past month. I'm also not feeling very well. I've definitely got a cold or something going on, so I'm going to try to keep this a little bit shorter than normal because I want to go to sleep. All right, so starting off with my life updates. Indoor soccer is rolling again. Our second session of it just started up. Hopefully this is the last one because I've got softball and t-ball coming up now. So luckily, it all worked out where I can be the assistant coach for my son's t-ball team and my daughter's softball team. And so far, I'm not seeing any conflicts in the schedule, which is wonderful. I've always worried because I always coach my daughter's teams and my son's 2 years younger, and that I wouldn't have time to be able to coach his teams as well. And that just doesn't seem fair. So being able to kind of juggle these all, it's hard, but I'm glad that we're getting to it. Also, the 49ers lost. Ugh. It's like a dagger in my heart. It's painful. It's painful even to mention those words, that the 49ers lost the Super Bowl again, 3 times in a row. So yeah, I'm hurting over here, but baseball season's starting up, so go Giants. And I can try to forget about that while I watch my Giants have a really, really bad season because, they're not a very good team right now, but give it a few years and maybe they'll be back to where they used to be. So the Discord server, as always, continues to grow at a way faster pace than it has any right to. I don't know why it is, but it's great. If you're not over there, come hang out. It's really fun. It's where the community hangs out in between my videos, and I'd love to have you. We're now at 2,400 people, and that's up 100 from last month. Seems like we have about 100 or 150 every month, so that's great. So join now. The Discord this past month just finished up a buddy read, like an online book club of Voice of War by 𝐒𝐿. These buddy reads are a ton of fun. We read like about 40, 50 pages a day, probably more like 45, 50. Have a daily discussion on the assigned chapters. There's dozens of people involved. This coming month, we're going to do another book, as we always do, but I'll announce that in my TBR video tomorrow. Or if you want to find out what it is, come over to the Discord, because we're already talking about it. So this past month, I played 3 video games. Normally I play a lot more, but I played a lot of time on each of the 3. So the first, I played another round of Crusader Kings 3. I love that game. It's just so awesome. I'm very sad that I had to quit, though, because I essentially lost the game, because I was like, in the game you try to be like a medieval, or even before medieval times, lord who tries to get bigger and bigger land, and it's like a totally sandboxy world domination type game, and I came to dominate like most of the world, and then I decided to create a new religion, Mattism, and everybody revolted. Nobody wanted that, so everybody overthrew me and killed me and a lot of my family, and it just became not possible to play anymore. So whatever, it was fun, but Mattism, bad idea. Then I played Power Wash Simulator, which sounds really boring, but God, it's fun to play Power Wash Simulator while you're listening to an audiobook. It really does sound dumb. It looks dumb, but play it, and it's like, all right, I'll just do this for another 5 minutes, and then a couple hours go by, and you're like, whoa. Super fun. And on the note of seemingly boring but really fun games, I've been playing the S out of SnowRunner. It's like this game where you play like a truck and you buy different ones to try to get better tires and stuff, and you make deliveries in deep, deep mud and snow. And it's really hard, really fun, and it's like the perfect game to play while you're listening to audiobooks. So let's talk about the stats. I read 9 books this month, and that was about 5,000 pages. The average score for this year is now 3.94, which is really high for me. That'd be the highest average score, if this holds up, that I've had in a really long time, so yay me. Got 146,000 views this month, which was up 6,000. About 14,000 hours watched on the channel, which is down 4,000. And 1,400 subscriptions, which is up 500. And I think this is the record most subscriptions I've ever had in a single month. So that's awesome. Why did I have so many subscriptions? Well, the number one video this past month, which got about 55,000 views, which is absolutely absurd. Definitely never had a video perform that well before, was how to get your ebooks for free from the library. Now, you may be thinking like, wait, that didn't come out this past month. You're right. I made this video like a year ago, and somehow it caught the algorithm, and it's performed crazy well. Brought in a ton of new viewers to the channel. It's now kind of leveling off again. I'll never really get how the YouTube algorithm works and how it just randomly picks up stuff from time to time, but when it does, it just makes the channel blow up because all the people watching it are new viewers. You don't have any old viewers, and so the subscription rate from those viewers is super high. So really cool. I don't know how you catch lightning in a bottle like that, but it happened and it was fun. And now it's basically over. The number 2 video with about 7,000 views, so quite the jump from 55,000 to 7,000, was my top 10 fantasy books, number 100 to 91. I'm doing a series there. Every week or two, I'll release a new one, and yeah, a lot of fun. Then number 3 with about 5,000 views was my Pillars of the Earth review, which is a lot of views for a review. Normally my reviews will get in the 2,000-ish views, so 5,000, I don't know why, but people love that review. So, or people love Pillars of the Earth, or have heard about it and now want to know why this guy who likes fantasy is raving about a historical fiction book. So that's probably it. All right, now let's go into the books I read. So the first book I read was The Cuckoo. This is the final book in the Under the Northern Sky trilogy by Leo Carew. I predicted a 5, and very sadly, I ended up giving it a 4. Now, 4 is still a good grade, but for the last book in a trilogy where I loved the first one so well, and I really liked the second one a lot, to have each of the books get worse was a big disappointment. I talked about it a lot in my review about what was disappointing here, but really it was the conclusion to the story. It was the last, third of the book, which I felt like really fumbled it really, really badly. It took some very strange directions, made some very odd decisions for the characters that I thought were kind of weak and not brave by the author at all, and wrapped up the series in an incredibly unsatisfying way. Not like a everything bad happens way, but like unsatisfying to the reader, and to the point where I'm like, I don't get why he made this ending the way he did. Will I still recommend The Wolf to people, the first book in the series? Of course. It's a wonderful book, and I feel like you could read that one book and get a good story. You won't get the whole story, and I think a lot of people, probably most people, love this third book, thinks it ends great. So don't listen to me. Pick up the series. Wonderful first book. I still liked all 3. I gave the first one a 5, next one a 4.5, the last one a 4. So good scores. I just had a lot more hope for the final book. The next book I read was The White Tower. This is the first book in the Alderaan Chronicles series by Michael Weishart. This was a Patreon pick. I think Patreon. And I guessed a 4, and I gave it a 4. This is a good story. Nothing really special about it. Just everything was good. Nothing great, nothing bad, nothing even okay. I think everything was pretty good. Starts off a good epic fantasy journey with these magic users. Really fun multi-POV story with a couple of the point of views a little more interesting than others. Really interested in seeing where this story goes. I'll probably end up picking. The more I think about it, the more I'm convinced I'm gonna keep going on this series. Had to percolate with it a little bit. But I'm missing it a little bit, and I really want to know where the story goes. Because at the end of the day, I feel like this first book really was just setting the stage, and now I want to see where it goes. I don't think I'm going to be committing to read the entire series, but I think reading the next book and figuring out, if this is for me would be a smart move on my part. All right, next book up is The Pillars of the Earth, the one I told you got a lot of views, and this is by Ken Follett. I bricked it a 5. I gave it a 5. And if I could give it a 6, I would. This is one of the best books I've ever read in my life, and it definitely gets the best book that I read this month award. Just so dang good, and it sounds so bad. I mean, the book premise is guys in medieval England want to build a church, a cathedral. That's the premise. But there's so much political intrigue in this. Just great historical background knowledge. Really fun multi-POV with backstabbing and political intrigue and this awesome angle on the religious element and people that are, some really, really good people trying to do the right thing in this church, and some really, really bad people trying to do horrible things. Like, horrifically horrible things, to the point where I've detested at least one of the characters here more than I've maybe ever detested a character in any book that I've ever read. Awesome stuff, pulls at your emotions in every way, and I'm so excited that this is part of a series, and so I can't wait to read the next book in this series, which is a big time jump, totally new characters, set in the same part of the world, I think, hopefully. But yeah, I cannot say enough positive things about this huge chonker of a book, a must-read for any fantasy fan, because it just hits on a lot of the themes that you would love out of any fantasy story. Next up is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. I predicted a 5, because of course I would. It's a staple of the sci-fi genre, and everybody loves it, right? No, I give it a 3.5. I thought it was just okay. It wasn't bad. It was a little bit above, like, but not much. I felt like the first half of the book was pretty good, like a 4 out of 5. Made me laugh. Some good stuff. The second half of the book was odd. It was like very plot driven. The jokes turned into just interesting musings about foreign alien life that didn't land for me. I felt like the plot got so convoluted and strange and weird and wacky and zany in not a great way. I get why people loved this. I would have loved it if I had read it at a younger age. I really wish I did. And I ultimately feel like I do in a lot of old famous books that the reason people love them is because they read them when they were younger, in a formative reading age, and it stuck in their minds, and now they like it, and they think real positive feelings about it. So when they read it again, they have that nostalgia coming up. I think that's what's happening with this one, and I missed out, unfortunately, on that nostalgia fun time that I really wish I had. All right, next is The Trials of Empire. This is part of The Empire of the Wolf by Richard Swan. I predicted a 5. I gave it a 3. Ugh. Final book in a trilogy, gave it a 3. Biggest disappointment by far. God dang. I gave the first 2 books 5 out of 5s. And for the final book in a trilogy for me to give it a 3 out of 5 is like, it's rough. I hate that feeling. It doesn't happen often. I really, really thought that this thing was going to knock it out of the park. It's one of the most anticipated books. One of the most anticipated new releases of 2024 for me personally. I suspect a lot of people are going to love it, but it just went in a weird direction. Like, it got away from this whole like intrigue and mystery story on a dealing with this set of characters you've come to know, and all of a sudden the big bad guy turns out to be some demon, and it goes in this very like weird underworld demons and bad guys thing, and kind of going away from what I felt like where we were going towards. And like, I feel like a lot of people are going to read that and be like, yes, this is awesome, so unexpected, I love it. But for me, it was like, just go through the promise that I feel like was set up. And it just did so much explaining about new characters and new political pieces on the chessboard in the first half of the book that I felt like there was too much crammed in. I felt like maybe this could have been executed with another book, but it's not. And I just felt really, really rushed and ultimately extremely disappointed. Next up is Red Country. This is part of the First Law series. This is the final of the standalones. So the 6th book in the First Law series by Joe Abercrombie. I predicted a 5, gave it a 4.5, which is good, really good. And yeah, I gave it a 4.5 the first time I read it, and I kind of thought I was going to like it more because I'm doing this rereads of all the First Law books, and I'm finding myself liking them more and more. And almost all of the books I've liked more the second time I read it. This one I just couldn't, I couldn't give it a higher score. I feel like it just didn't feel, in some ways it felt like a quintessential First Law book in the way the dialogue happened. But the way the plotting happened and the pacing of the story felt like it was totally foreign to First Law. It was a totally different book, and I get why. I mean, this was like a Western book. Abercrombie decided to play with this whole Western genre, like what happened if I made a Western book into a fantasy, and he went that direction and used a lot of the things that are very important and staples of the Western genre. But they're just so foreign to the way that he writes. The reveals and the coming together at the end to blow your mind just wasn't there. And what I was left with was great dialogue and really interesting characters. But that plot wasn't there to keep me going like it is in the other ones, and just kind of made me not be able to get it over that hump to that 5-star rating that I kind of hoped it was. Then was The Player of Games. This is the 2nd book in the Culture series by Ian Banks. I predicted a 4, and I gave it a 3. This one was a book that was recommended to me by somebody that won the Patreon raffle pick. So on my Patreon account, if you sign up for it, you get to put a book in a raffle, and I spin the wheel at the end of the month, and whatever it lands on, I have to read. This one, I've never heard of it before. And strange that the second book in the series was recommended to me, but apparently this is like the best starting place. An interesting concept, an older sci-fi book about this post-scarcity world where nobody needs anything anymore because robots give it to them. This guy is a very expert game player, like literally like board games and dice games and stuff like that. And he gets recruited to go represent his home world in another world where they're playing the greatest, most complicated game ever, and he goes and does that. An interesting concept that I feel like just didn't nail it on the execution. Yeah, decent stuff. I understand why it can be a very famous book back when it came out, but I just feel like there's so much sci-fi nowadays that expands upon this. Even things like Ender's Game, which has a somewhat similar plot, I felt like was executed to a much better degree. Even though I think Ender's Game came out before this, but I could be wrong. All right. Almost done. Next up is Homeland. This is the first book in the Legend of Drizzt series by R.A. Salvatore. Not the first book that Salvatore has written, but the first chronologically, which I hear is the best way to read it. I predicted a 3, because this seems childish. It seems like the same thing that I thought that ended up happening with the Hitchhiker's Guide, where it's like, okay, you had to read it back then, and you're not going to like it as much. Nah, this is a 5 out of 5. This is amazing. I love this book. It's so good. And unfortunately, it's the second best book that I read this month because I happened to read it the same month that I read Pillars of the Earth. But almost any other month, this would have been my number 1. And it also gets the award for the biggest surprise. This knocked me out of the water. It is so dang good. I'm just eating up this world that's been created before this book was written. It's part of the Dungeons & Dragons Realms game, I guess. I'm not a Forgotten Realms, I guess, is like a style of Dungeons & Dragons. I don't know. I'm not a Dungeons & Dragons guy. Maybe I should be, because this was dope. Love the plot, love the characters. Every single thing about this book I thought was perfection, and I love everything about it. Then the final book that I read this month was Voice of War. This is the first book in the Threadlight series by Zach Argyle. This was the buddy read book. I predicted a 4. I gave it a 3, sadly. And a large majority of the people that participated in the buddy read with me also gave it a 3. In fact, we did a poll where we all voted on what we thought of this book afterwards, and the average score was 3.18. And so a little higher than me, but in general, that's kind of what people felt. It felt like a good debut from a fantasy author, but at the end, it felt like, and I hate to be rude, but I mean this in a nice way, but it felt like it was trying to be Brandon Sanderson, but wasn't there yet. I also feel like things like Elantris, which was the first published Sanderson book, felt like Sanderson at a weak spot trying to figure out who he is. And I certainly like this book a lot more than I like Elantris. So I think there's promising future for this author, Zach Argyle. Really interesting concepts. Didn't love some of the characters, especially the last point of view character that gets brought in. Just felt like everything about this book just felt like Sanderson light. But I think he's got a lot of skill, and I'm interested to see what he has in the future. So that is it for the books that I read. Let's go into the books that were sent to me. I've got quite a few, so bear with me. I'll try to fly through these because I'm not feeling good. The first one, I have no idea what it is. It's wrapped up all nice like this, with a nice note, that is probably more personable, and I don't want to read it, but it's very nice. I love when people send me a little handwritten note. I will read that after I turn off this channel. And then it's wrapped up like this, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to get it out because I'm not feeling very well, and my strength is totally zapped. Do I need to, cut it? No. My daughter would kill me because she loves stuff like this. And we're almost there. Gotcha. All right. This is really wrapped up. All right. Unwrapped. It's 2 books. All right, so we got The Shoals by Corey Gannon. This is part of the Skyward Thread, and also Across the Winter Ocean. I don't know which one is first, but they are very, very short back, so I'm going to read them both to you because they're both very short. Malice was a revered sergeant in the famed Vahanian Marines. After a chaotic battle at sea, he wakes up on a deserted beach alone and wounded. Branded a deserter and murderer, empty with loss, Malice must make his way back to the great city of Vaughn to save the last thing in the world he has left. Along the way, Malice will encounter audacious pirates, a magician with many names, a duplicitous king, and an outlaw priestess who may hold the answer to his search. All the while, an ancient power will call to him, and Malice will find he has only begun his journey into adventure, peril, and magic. I think this is the second book, so I'm not going to read this one. This looks like the first one. So, yeah, interesting stuff. Thank you so much for the awesome packaging, and nice note that you sent to me, Mr. Corey Gannon. All right, now we got The Birth of Death. This is part of the 𝐬𝐻𝑁 series, book 1 by Joseph P. Macalino. Really cool cover. I like the shaded characters there. Really cool. Meet Artemis, the head investigator for the elvish kingdom of Aerenthal, who begins to notice the flaws in his apparently perfect society. As he develops feelings for Savannah, a beautiful elvish druid hiding an important secret, he struggles to separate his personal feelings from his responsibilities to the kingdom. In a nearby centaur village, the young warrior Irontail struggles to distinguish himself in a tribe where independent thought is discouraged. When their paths cross, they both discover that their own people's shortcomings may be the least of their concerns. Putting aside their own personal troubles, they must fight against the clock to ensure the very survival of their peoples. As they work towards the common goal, they find that they each have their own unique gifts to offer, but will they have enough strength to survive? All right. Kind of scary cover on this one. By Daniel McDaniel. That's a dope name. Luminosity, Grieving Cold. Love this name. All right. 3 sun gods bathe the city of legends, Luminosity, in their blessed light. The city stands on the decaying ruins of the ancient civilization. Skeletal skyscrapers guard their solemn secrets of forgotten technology and past tragedies. But under the surface, the light dies and shadow began. It is a dark god's domain, even caged, and he holds his grudges through the eons. 5 fates intertwined, thrown into the currents of destiny, played like puppets. Will they be able to tear free from their strings? Laxaran Atana, a disowned noble son and heist group mastermind, finds his leisurely life turned upside down. Both his estranged family and an enemy from the past test his strange ability to find lies in the light. His brother, Valgusta Tama, general and golden son, is forced to take responsibility for threats to the city. As war brews on the horizon, intrigue and betrayals test his resolve and character. Almost done. New and outlandish technologies emerge that push the boundaries of mortality and the conscience of a young scientist, Illumi. She arrived in Luminosity from the far north carrying a dark secret. A huntress in the depths, Ayana, struggles with her inner demons and the chains of her past. And Dwab, a young urchin struck by grief, searches for monsters prowling the short nights. And deep down, below all, eldritch things things stir in the dark. All right, we got some more here. Next up, The Elements of Time. That's a cool cover. Kind of reminds me of the Sufficiently Advanced Magic cover, I think. This is book 1 of The Winds of Change by Sam Paisley. Destiny, a personal responsibility, what the future holds, common concerns for anyone graduating high school, but usually not because of a cosmic war between timeless beings where you are the central player. As the end of school quickly approaches and Cooper Bailey watches his perfect world slip away, his only concern is savoring every last minute of his high school career. For his best friend, Reed Patterson, graduation is a doorway to the future, where his discipline and focus will finally allow him to meet his true potential. When a mysterious mirror-masked man begs for their help to stop a dangerous heretic, Cooper and Reed find themselves thrust into unknown worlds, wrestling with a destiny as old as time itself. As the truths about their roles in the universe unfold, and enemies disguise themselves as allies, their only hope is to trust each other and learn fast. Far from home and in mortal peril, Cooper and Reed attempt to hone their newfound abilities and come to grips with their purpose for being. Almost done. Ooh, a hardback. Nice. Ooh, I love this. Nice little note. Thank you much. Awesome fold-out letter. That's dope. Let's see what the cover itself looks like. It looks like just like the outside, but without the cover. That's cool. The inside flap looks like the story, so I'll read the inside flap. Nearly half a century after the methodical slaughter of the rooks who wandered the land of Erda, weaving stories and inspiring the citizens of the growing empire, only one rook remains. It has long been his duty, a task he traded his name for, to spread the tales that keep the dragons in a peaceful slumber. When the 7 aspects of the relic task him with the quest of rekindling the hope and respect that once accompanied the role of a rook among the people of Alisandi, he must decide whether or not to risk everything to stop the destruction that accompanies dragons when they awake. But Imperial spies still linger in the dark, and news of a remaining rook travels fast. It will take all the skill of the rook and his friends to evade the sprites clamoring to put an end to his stories. All right, 2 more. All right, we got Tempest Rising, book 1, in the Kodak Or no, it's Kodak, The Last Shielder by Max Moyer. In the village of Lon, 𝐬𝐬 endures a bleak life of misery at the hands of his hateful cousins and aunt. His steadfast Uncle Arden is his only anchor. When a water sprite arrives, speaking of destiny and an epic journey that awaits, Kodak struggles to grasp an adventure with goblins, crickies, and dwarves could ever be his story. But when his uncle falls in a kidnapping plot and entrusts 𝐬𝐬 with a mysterious medallion, 𝐬𝐬 flees into a vast unknown world, seeking answers about his past and the medallion he carries. 𝐬𝐬 finds himself drawn to the magnificent city 𝗟𝗏𝐻𝐻. In his journey, he unearths a clandestine order, a corrupt magistrate, and a sinister plot that threatens humanity's very existence. And last but certainly not least is a book by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So thank you, Adrian, your publisher, for sending this, and it is House of Open Wounds. It's got a long back. I'm going to read a little bit of it. City by city, kingdom by kingdom, the 𝗏 have sworn to bring perfection and correctness to an imperfect world. As their legions scour the world of superstition with a bright flame of reason, so they deliver a mountain of ragged hold and scorched flesh to the field hospitality tents just behind the front line. Which is where, not hospitality, hospital, which is where 𝐿𝐼𝐼, one-time priest, healer, and rebel, finds himself, reprieved from the gallows and sent to war clutching a box of orphan gods. He has been sequestered to a particularly unorthodox medieval unit. I'm just going to read the whole thing. We're almost done. Led by the Butcher, an ogre of a man who's a dab hand with a bone saw and an alchemical tincture, the unit's motley crew of conscripts, healers, and orderlies are no stranger to the horrors of war. Theirs is an unspeakable trade, elbow deep in gore. They have a first-hand view of the suffering caused by flesh-rending monsters, arcane magical weaponry, and embittered enemy soldiers. Entrusted, for now, with saving lives deemed otherwise unsavable, the field hospital's crew face a precarious existence. Their work with unapproved magic, necromancy, demontology, and 𝐿𝐼𝐼's thoroughly illicit gods could lead to the unit being disbanded, arrested, or worse. Beset by enemies within and without, the last thing anyone needs is a miracle. All right, that's it. I am going to go sleep now because I'm not feeling well. Thank you so much for watching this, and as always, happy reading to you. Thanks again to all my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier and Librarian tier patrons, Anna G, CJ, Doused, Darren, Gregory, JD, Jonathan, Nathan T, Nev's Book Channel, 𝗟𝗏𝗏𝐿𝐼𝐼, Ron Reich, Russell, Ryan L, Sydney Baker, Tay C, Tahir, Anna, Andra, Blair, Brock, Evan, Harry B, Joe UK, Kat Mick, Michael Sugarman, Philippe, Sky, Wacky, and Zion. Thanks for sticking to the end of this video, and if you want to watch some more content from my channel, click over here and I've got some good videos for you. Thanks so much.